Here's how to tie a figure 8 bend. This knot is also sometimes referred to as the Flemish Bend, the Rewoven Figure 8 bend, or the double figure 8 bend. To tie this knot, do a figure 8 knot near the end of the first rope. You do this by taking the end of the rope, going under, up, under, and through the final opening. Now take the end of the second rope and retrace the figure 8 that you just made, just in the other direction. To check that it's tied correctly, make sure that it forms 3 sets of parallel ropes on each side. You can use this knot whenever you need to create a strong connection between 2 ropes because it's one of the strongest knots out there. This knot tightens as you pull it, so it doesn't require any stopper knots. But when used in critical applications like climbing, a lot of people like to add double overhand stopper knots on each side. Here's how to tie the Farrimond Friction Hitch knot. Start by taking the end of the rope and going around the anchor point that you'll be using. Now take the end of the rope and create another closed loop in front of the standing end, something like this. Now take the bight that you just created and go around the standing end. For a more secure knot, go around twice, like this. Now take the end of the knot, create another bight, and go through the last bight that you just created. Now tighten everything by pulling on each rope separately until the knot is fully tightened. This knot can be a bit difficult to tighten, so just keep pulling on each of the strings separately until the final knot feels somewhat tight. When you pull on the rope, the size of the adjustable loop shouldn't tighten by itself, but at the same time you should be able to adjust the size of it very easily with just one hand. This knot is most commonly used in camping for various tarp setups. But the best part about this knot is that you can untie it very easily just by pulling this string. To learn, here's how to tie a directional figure of 8 loop. It's also sometimes referred to as the inline figure of 8 loop or the single bowline on a bight. Start by creating a long bight in the middle of the rope and then turn it clockwise like this. Now take the end of the bight in your hand and go under, over, under, and through the final opening. To tighten this knot, pull on each rope separately until the knot is fully tightened. This knot is useful because it creates a secure attachment point in the middle of the rope without needing access to both free ends. That's why it's often used in mountaineering and climbing. But you can also tie multiple knots like this next to each other to create handles for climbing up the rope. Its only downside is that you can only pull it from the opposite end. If you pull the loop from the opposite end, the knot can capsize and slip under extreme pressure. Here's how to tie a double figure 8 loop knot. Sometimes this knot is also referred to as the bunny ears, the dog-eared loop, or the super 8 knot. Start by creating a long bight. Take the end of it and go under, up, under, and finally through the last loop. Now go back, but not all the way, and pull the end of the loop over the whole knot. And finally, to finish the knot, pull these 2 loops. To confirm that it's correct, there should be 2 parallel ropes on each side and 3 parallel ones at the bottom. This knot is very strong, and by pulling each eye separately, the other one doesn't tighten. If you want to adjust the size on each of these loops, then you need to readjust this string. For example, you can make one of them larger and one of them smaller. The figure 8 double loop knot is often used in climbing for attaching to 2 anchor points. But it's also used in search and rescue because you can put your feet through here and it works as an emergency seat. Here's how to tie the Halyard Hitch, other called the Halyard shackle knot or the sunfish halyard knot. The first version of this knot is where the tag end sits right next to the halyard, and the second version is actually identical to the poacher's knot, where the tag end exits in the opposite direction. Both of them are equally as strong, so it doesn't really matter which one you choose. And by the way, I do know that this isn't a halyard, I'm just using it as an example. To tie the first version, go through the halyard, then go around the standing end 1-2 times, and finally pass the tag end through this loop over here, and then tighten the knot. And this is how it should look in the end. And to tie the second version, again go through the halyard and then tie it around the standing end 1-2 full turns. And after that, go through both of these loops that you just made. Through one and through the second one. And again, tighten the knot. And again, this is how it should look like in the end. In theory, the poacher's knot version should be more reliable because the tag end goes through 2 strands over here instead of just 1. But in reality, both of them are equally as strong. Here's how to tie the scaffold knot, otherwise called the triple overhand noose. Start by creating a rather long bight near the end of the rope. Take the working end, cross it over the standing end, and then do 2 full turns around both of these strands. Now pass the end through 3 of these strands over here and tighten the knot. To confirm that it's tied correctly, check that there are 3 parallel strands on the other side. It creates a fixed loop at the end of the rope, which is very secure, simple to tie, and also has a nice looking, minimal appearance. Use it anytime you need to permanently attach to a carabiner, ring, or something similar, because it jams very badly and is almost impossible to untie. To learn other useful knots, subscribe to our channel. Here's how to tie the harness bend, otherwise called the parcel knot. Start by creating a loop near the end of the first rope. Take the end of the second rope and go through this loop from the front, then go over the tag end of the first rope, then behind the standing end, and finally tuck it under itself here in the front. Tighten it by pulling each of the strings separately until the knot feels tightened. It's called the parcel knot because its main advantage is that you can tie it under tension, so feel free to use it in similar situations. Although it is pretty strong, don't use it for critical applications because the rope can untie under cyclical loads. To learn other useful knots, subscribe to our channel.